Our next speaker coming up is the CEO of a software company called NECS. He has recently been brave enough to be the first CEO in history to come out and admit that the Mandela Effect is a real phenomenon that is really affecting his actual company. He has went as far as to integrate what he calls Mandela Mondays into each work week. He has a meeting every Monday and discusses different Mandela effects with his team. He also owns and operates the QuantumBusinessman.com, which is one of the sponsors for this year's event, and has been an instrumental part of pulling all of this together. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome man that I am proud to know, the quantum businessman himself, Mr. Chris Anatra.
Thank you, everyone. I first want to say, wow, I'm so happy to be here, so happy to be in Ketchum, so happy to be with all you wonderful people. There is just so much going on. I have so much information to present. Just everybody simmer down. It's going to be okay. Don't save your questions for later. We're going to get through this. It's going to be really interesting. What Cynthia put together was pretty amazing. She laid out the whole Mandela Effect principle of what's going on, and I'm going to be going into other aspects of it. Now, as it was said before, I own a company called NECS Incorporated, based in Connecticut, and we have a specialized software product for food distribution. And these types of things started to affect my business. But even before that, I myself began to become Mandela affected. So I knew things were happening. And then when it started to affect my business in ways that I couldn't deny, I felt it was a great opportunity to come out and actually express things from another point of view. So here I am. I'm happy to be here. I'm really happy for the whole support that the Mandela Effect community has provided. So it's been really, really amazing, and I want to thank everyone here for that. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do things a little bit differently right now, okay? We're gonna start off with a sing-along. I know you weren't expecting that, but here we go. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start to sing a verse to a song that I know you know. And then I'll start the beginning part, and when I point, that means you guys finish the rest. Okay, you ready? Okay, here we go. 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. Take one down, pass it around.
98 bottles of beer on the wall.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't actually the song, but that was our warm-up. Yeah. So here we go. This is the actual song, and I want to do this a little bit differently. The first time that I sing the first part of it, and when I point to you to sing the verse that you all know, I want just the guys to sing it, okay? Then I'm going to do it again, and I want just the girls to sing it, and then we're going to do it again, and then everyone's going to sing it together, okay? Here we go. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Gentlemen?
Life is but a dream.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Ladies?
Life is but a dream.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Everyone!
Life is but a dream.
Yes, life is but a dream. Isn't that interesting? It's something that we are all taught from the time we're little kids. Like, we know that song. That song is pretty familiar. There's different ways we can sing it. There's different verses and different harmonies and so forth. So I thought that was a good way to begin the process of what I'm going to be talking about. Awakening in the dream. Life is a dream and a hologram. That song that we just sung is one that we all learn as children. And it's interesting because the system that we're in operates by disclosure. Unless we are told, even if it sounds crazy, unbelievable, fantasy, science fiction, out of this world, unless we are told something, It is not allowed into the reality. My perspective right now is that we are all lucid dreaming. And if you think about that, how does that make you feel? Could we possibly be lucid dreaming right now? If you have been experiencing the Mandela effect, you have already begun your awakening process. You are awakening in the dream. Is the Mandela effect real? Well, from my perspective, and I'm sure your perspective, it's pretty real as it gets. And we're all hungry for more information about it. We're all trying to figure out what is going on. So this gathering that we have of all of these minds that we have here that have been experiencing it, and the ideas that we can share with each other to help get us closer and closer, step by step, to figuring out what's rational and what's logical and what makes sense regarding this whole Mandela effect situation. You want to know how reality functions and how our consciousness works. You want to know what's going on. Well, first, let me start off by talking about myself. Who am I? Some of you may have seen the video that I put together. I'm the president and CEO of a software company called NECS Incorporated. As I mentioned before, my company specializes in creating a very specialized ERP system for food distribution. Now, I created a video in June of 2019 that quickly got over 50,000 hits in a very short period because the video addressed the Mandela effect and quantum physics from a business point of view, which was something that was kind of rare at the time. Now, before I did this, my board of directors I had a meeting with them and I told them what I was about to do and the video I was about to make, and they were like, no, you can't do that. You cannot do that because people are going to lose confidence in our software. You can't do that. So I'm the captain of the ship, so I had to make an executive decision. I felt it was the right thing to do. I just could not hold it back, and I'm really glad that I did. And guess what? It brought me here with you guys, so yeah. And I have to say, I'll call it awakening process for myself really began with this. The fall of the Twin Towers, September 11th, 2001. Why did it begin with this? Because I realized something was wrong. I realized that there were just so many things that didn't make sense. When, at the time that it was happening, it was devastating. Everyone just had a different viewpoint, like a wonderful viewpoint, community came together, etc. But then when all of the facts were coming together about why it actually happened, some things just didn't make any sense. And it began to make me question reality. And it made me question our government and other forces of what we would call domination and control. Why would these things start to happen? So at that point in my life, things are going along pretty well. And then I just had to say, wow, this is like very interesting. Now, when you look at this picture, do you see a Mandela effect?
Yes.
The stripes, those were never there before. Not that I remember. And and even when you see the explosions now, they're like really bad, like horrible black smoke coming out like I never experienced before. So even the entire, the way this happened became a Mandela effect to myself and others. And there are other things too that are Mandela effects about this. In 2013, like many of you here, Berenstain Bears, what happened with that? I know it wasn't Berenstain Bears. We all know it wasn't Berenstain Bears. So when that first happened to me, I was reading one of my kids at the time, he was 3, the Berenstain Bears, and we had like 20 of the books. And I took one off the shelf, and it was like Berenstain Bears. And I'm like, wow, someone misprinted the book. I actually thought it was a misprint. So I put it back. I looked at the other ones. They all said Berenstain in one day, in one night. The night before they were Berenstain, the next day they were Berenstain. And now at that time, my software company was putting out this big release, and I just didn't really have any time to look into this any further. There was one point too, I thought someone broke into my house and replaced all the books with defective copies. Like, why would someone do that? It didn't make any sense. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so kind of put it on the shelf, literally. Time went on. And then 2017, I began to have, I had a spiritual experience that began another process of me questioning reality. And it introduced me to something called the Akashic Records. Now, I don't know if anyone here has heard of the Akashic Records before. Okay, I see some heads shaking yes and no. At the time, I had no idea what that was. I was like, Akashic what? Like, what is this all about? But it was something that really, I won't give you the details, but it was something that really awakened me to the core at the time. And then for those of you that don't know what the Akashic Records are, if you're a gamer, let's say, for example, you're playing a game and let's say you die in a certain level and you want to play back the last 5 minutes of the game. That's kind of like with the same concept of the Akashic Records. Everything that's going on in our reality is being recorded, which is a very fascinating subject. And that led me into something called reincarnation. I'm like, what? Reincarnation? That's ridiculous. Who could believe in reincarnation? That's the way that I was always taught. And then that led to other things. And then this Mandela effect hit me hard. Like a lot of people here. The Jfk assassination, November 22nd, 1963. I was in my kitchen. I had a couple of friends over, and we were talking about how Trump was going to be releasing some new information from the Warren Report, and we're wondering what that could possibly be. And I was like, oh yeah, and Zapruder, and the Zapruder film, Frame 237, showed blah, blah, blah. So we were talking about it, and I went to bring it up on the computer, and I'm like, what is this? Is somebody like, I thought it was like April Fool's or something. Like someone actually like changed all of the Zapruder films. Different angle. There's 6 people in the car, governor of Texas and his wife. In the reality I remember, they were in the limo behind. And now the governor of Texas gets shot. He gets shot in the leg. All these different, the whole chain of events happens differently enough to make you say, wow. Especially for someone like me that was always like, I watched this video hundreds of times, especially as a kid, trying to figure out who the shooters were, was the CIA involved, blah, blah, blah. So Mandela effects began to affect my software business. As I said, it has to do with food distribution. Customer data and names of established items would change and be different from the client's memory. Now, some examples that you would all know about is, of course, Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. We all have, most of us here, I would say, have heard of Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. It's one of those product names that's hard to forget. So customers would call, what happened to my Stouffer's stovetop stuffing? Somebody keeps changing it back to Kraft stovetop stuffing. What's going on with this? And same thing with the avocados, like Haas avocados became Haas avocados. And Macintosh apples, McIntosh apples, etc. So it became very interesting. One of the things it helped me do is understand how timelines work. And I'm going to explain this to you a little bit with how I was able to investigate this in my software business. But what happened was through this whole experience, and I was already like understanding what the Mandela effect was, it was an opportunity to bring the Mandela effect out from a business point of view. So today, my goal is to answer 4 questions. These are 4 pretty big questions. If I could answer this, your admission fee has been paid. That's all I can say. So number 1, why is it happening, right? Why? Number 2, are we in a dream or a holographic universe? Does that make sense? I wasn't taught that in school. Number 3, what are timelines and how do they work? And number 4, what is causing the Mandela effect? Why is it happening? So let's address the first question. It's part of our awakening process. It's an alarm clock going off. Every time a Mandela effect comes into our reality, we have the choice to either say, wow, I need to investigate this more, or hit the snooze button. I need to go back to sleep for a while. I need to pay my bills. I need to put food on the table. I can't worry about these crazy Mandela effects. And when we speak to others about it, we're going to get mixed reactions because it's difficult to process for both who we speak to and ourselves. And one of these examples has to do with my parents and the Bible. So I was brought up in a religious type of household, and I was talking to my parents about the Mandela Effect, and I said, Dad, there's this Mandela Effect about the JFK assassination. And there's 6 people in the car, and I'm going on, and he's like, of course there are 6 people in the car. Of course the governor of Texas gets shot. And I'm like, Dad, who are you? Like, what's going on? So, but I knew he was into the Bible. He used to teach Bible classes. So there were some scriptures I knew he was familiar with. One is in the book of John, and the other one's in the book of Isaiah. So I said, Dad, get out your Bible, and I'm going to tell you about some of these Mandela effects. So actually, before he did that, I said, in John 18:20, Jesus, I said, fill in the blank, Dad, where 2 or blank are gathered in my name. And my father's like, more, 2 or more. And I'm like, that's not what it says anymore. It says, where there are 2 or 3. And he's like, it's like, what? That doesn't even, he's like, but that doesn't even make any sense. He's like, what if there are 4 people? Then Jesus isn't there anymore? I'm like, I know, it says that. And then the other one was from the book of Isaiah, the lion with the lamb, which a lot of us have heard of that expression before. We know about that. And I said, Dad, now it says the wolf and the lamb. And he's like, I know what the problem is. It's the translation you're looking at. So he goes back into his bedroom. He pulls out like 7 Bibles, King James, a Gideon. He got a hotel. He has all the Bibles out, and he's looking at John 18:20 and Isaiah, and he's like, he doesn't understand what's going on. He's looking at and every single one of the versions says where 2 or 3, or the wolf will lie down with the lamb. He doesn't know he just doesn't get it. Very shocked. My mother is very shocked too. She doesn't understand it. But then they just kind of phase out. They tune out. They go back and they turn on Fox News. And I'm like, whoa, we're talking about something really important here. So, but that's the kinds of reactions that I've gotten. I think you guys are getting the same type of reactions. Now, to add a little flavor to this whole thing, I shot an interview with my parents. And at the end of the interview, I got them to agree on a particular Mandela effect that we all agreed on. So I'm going to now entertain you with this interview with my parents. So we will start this. Hi, I'm here with my parents, Victor and Heather. Nice to have you here.
It's fun being here, yeah.
So I've been doing these videos about Mandela effects that you guys are somewhat aware of. I kind of force you to watch them from time to time. So I figured I'd talk to you guys about it because, sometimes you're skeptical of it and sometimes it's like, wow, that makes sense. I definitely remember things a certain way. So I wanted to have just a little conversation with you about some different things. So the first thing is, well, don't forget that I'm known now as the quantum businessman. So yeah, I know it's a surprise, but yes, it's my new moniker. I even have a tagline that goes, the universe is of commerce.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah. So, and also too, kind of like the whole business thing kind of runs in the family, right? Because we call ourselves what? Anatra?
An entrepreneurs.
An entrepreneurs. Instead of an entrepreneur, we're an entrepreneurs. Now, we've talking about Mandela effects before, and it's funny how it goes. Like, for example, Dad, I remember originally talking to you about the Jfk assassination, right? Now, I was like really excited about it. Like, wow, who are these 2 extra people? The governor of Texas and his wife, and the governor of Texas gets shot. And what was your reaction?
Yeah, that's the way I remembered it.
And there's a whole thing called the magic bullet.
Yeah.
You get shot in the leg. No one knows how that bullet deflected or got. So to me, it was like totally new. And for you, it's like, of course, there's always 6 people in the car. So those type of things. But some things like did affect you guys the same way. So when I talked to you about some of the Bible things, for example, the blank will lie down with the lamb. Do you remember that one?
Sure.
Right.
What do you remember it as being?
As the lion.
Lion.
The lion. And do you remember what it is now?
The wolf, is it?
Yes, the wolf. So that was like a big one because I remember that clearly. And the other one was, I think it was Matthew 18, where Jesus said, where 2 or blank are gathered in my name.
Right.
Do you remember what you remember it?
2 or more?
Right.
More, yeah.
And you know what it is now?
2 or 3?
I don't blame you if you remember it is now because these timelines are like confusing everyone. But now it's like where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. And that doesn't really make sense, right? 2 or more. What happens if there's 4 people, right?
Exactly.
And he's not there anymore?
More sounds better.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, we have differing opinions when it comes to this. And about the first video I made, it had to do with like avocados.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
So-
Yeah, that was weird.
So, Mom, how do you remember how the avocado that starts with an H is spelled?
HAAS.
Does that sound familiar to you? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's surprising that it's now,
HASS.
yeah, Hass.
Yeah.
So it went from Haas to Hass. And even that product, the stuffing mix. Remember
Stofers, yeah.
Stofers, stovetop stuffing.
Yeah.
It's never existed.
Oh, that doesn't make sense.
I know.
Everybody remembers.
These things don't make sense to everyone right off the bat, but then quantum physics and timelines begin to answer those questions. But just so everyone in the audience has an idea about, these are some of the things that we talk about. We don't agree with everything, and that's okay. That's how Mandela effects work. We're all from different timelines. We have our consciousness remembers things from different timelines. I thought it was interesting too about how the other month you were at my house and you showed me a picture of a black egret. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, what is this? And then you said, no, that's like a black heron, right? Or something like that.
Right.
And then I went online and I'm like, you both discovered new Mandela effects, because I don't ever remember there being black egrets or black herons or black cranes. Even their beaks are black. So to me, that was like a Mandela effect. So congratulations, you didn't know it, but you
Wow.
both identified 2 Mandela effects, at least for me anyway. So one of the things I wanted to do is just see if this is a specific music Mandela effect. And I wanted to see if this is something that you remember a certain way. So this is a song by John Denver. Now I know you both know the song. It's that song about Take Me Home, Country Roads.
Right.
Okay, so what I want to do is, on my phone I have this song queued up to play. And I want you to tell me if you remember this
Okay.
the way it is. And we're just talking about the title of the song.
Okay.
And just so you know, it's John Denver's, and the title of the song is,
Country Road.
Country Road.
okay, here we go. Country Road,
Okay.
Country Road. Are you ready?
Country roads.
Right there. Country roads. Do you remember it being singular or plural? Were roads going to take him home? Was it like country road?
No, I know that song really well. It's Road. No.
Singular, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I remember it.
I'll tell you, like, I remember as a kid in the back seat of the car with the 8-track John Denver tape, like
Absolutely,
hearing
yeah.
it like a gajillion times.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was always Country Road. Take me home, Country Road.
Absolutely.
And now in this timeline, it's always been Country Roads. The title of the song is Country Roads. Everything is Country Roads now, plural instead of singular. So that's an example of a Mandela effect that we all agree with.
Yeah, that's
So
kind
woo! All right,
Yeah.
we did it.
Yeah.
We came together and
Yes.
we identified
Very
a
interesting, yeah.
timeline that we all remember, that we're
Yeah.
all part of. So yeah, so is there anything that you would like to say? Like anything at all? You've got the floor. How do you feel about these Mandela effects, Dad?
Well, it's extremely interesting because there's no real answer, or logical answer, and it becomes you kind of say, well, did I remember it correctly, or maybe it was me that misremembered it, but it's and then sometimes you just, that's not the answer. The answer is so obvious that there is a change, but it's hard to explain, and to understand. That's my opinion of it.
It is first hard to get your head around, for sure.
Yeah.
Mom, what do you feel about Mandela effects?
Well, I do. I find it curious and interesting. And some you can say, well, that's just memory or, something else other than that. But there are a few things like the Country Road that one particularly, because I knew that song really well.
Yeah, I was going to say another one is from a Walt Disney movie, Snow White. When the evil queen looks in the mirror, what does she say?
Mirror, mirror on
On
the
the
wall,
wall.
who's the fairest of them all?
Right, mirror, mirror on the wall. Do you know what
Right.
she says now?
What?
Magic mirror. And it's always been magic mirror on the wall. And for a lot of people, it's like, nope, it's always
No.
been mirror, mirror.
Yeah.
But in the original Disney film and afterwards, it's always been magic mirror on the wall.
Wow.
Now what's interesting, one of the things I'm starting to find is happening to people is that it's getting hard for them. They can almost remember it both ways. And that's part of a concept of us becoming multidimensional. Like we begin to remember things that we've experienced on other timelines. Like for example, there's a famous composer, Beethoven. Do you remember what Beethoven's whole name was? I'll give you the first name, Ludwig.
No.
You don't know Beethoven?
I don't know
Ludwig
his full
Beethoven.
name. I just
Ludwig.
call him Beethoven.
Ludwig von Beethoven?
Oh,
Does that
okay,
sound
sure.
familiar?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so now in this timeline, he's always been Ludwig van Beethoven.
Not Von?
Not von. It switched from V-O-N, which a lot of people remembered, to V-A-N, van. But what happens is, sometimes people will get confused and they're like, wait, I remember it both ways. I remember Van Beethoven and I remember von Beethoven.
Yeah.
So that's what we call becoming multidimensional. You begin to have memories of multiple timelines. So it gets even more difficult
Right.
to put these things into perspective.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's all very interesting.
Yes, so I want to continue to invite you to watch my videos. And,
do.
Give a little like and maybe say a nice comment. And,
Right.
yeah.
You got
We
it.
will.
Okay,
Count on
thank you,
us.
thank you. So I've got 2 likes in the can for this video already. If I don't get at least
For
2
sure.
likes, something's
From
wrong.
your mom and
Yeah,
dad.
from my mom and dad, no less. Yeah. Maybe if there is a love button, I make sure that you do hit the love one. but-
Okay, we'll look for the
Well,
love.
I think like is all you have, so we'll go with that.
Okay, that'll do.
Well, thank you very much.
It's been fun, Chris.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Country roads, huh?
Country roads, country roads. I'm gonna go home on my country road.
Yeah, right.
Yes. All right, thank you.
You're
You
welcome.
got it. You're welcome.
Mom and Dad, yeah. By the way, at the end of my presentation, I'm going to be presenting proof positive that the Mandela effect is real. So fasten your seatbelts for that one. Okay. So to continue, why is it happening? Not everyone will be awakening at the same time. You can call it a wake-up date. We all have something that I'm going to call, you can call it as well, a wake-up date. And as excited as we can be to share a Mandela effect with other people, many just won't be able to even grasp the concept. They may even become irritated because it's not their time. It's not their time to wake up. And if that happens, probably the best thing to do is drop the subject, especially around the family, politics, religion, Mandela effects. We're going to add that one to it as well. But what's going to happen too is as you see, you'll have certain friends in your life that kind of exit your friendship. Like you just don't resonate with them anymore. But a whole new set of friends will start to come into your life. It's a very interesting phenomena. So overall, I find that to be a very positive thing because that definitely has happened to me as well. Now, awakening to what? What are we awakening to? Awakening to understanding what the truth of our reality is. Awakening to understand that quantum theory, quantum physics, etc., is correct. And one of the proofs is going to be the Mandela effect. Awakening to understanding that we are much, much, much more than what we were ever taught, and that our consciousness does traverse timelines. We are multidimensional. And even though our physical body may die, our consciousness is immortal. Awakening to understanding as an individual why exactly we are here on the Earth hologram. So, Cynthia brought forward some great information. Is this a hologram? Is this a simulation? Is this a game? Is this a dream? Is it a school? Is it a prison planet? Is it a human DNA farm? Is it all those things? So now the next thing I want to address is, are we in a holographic universe? So, we'll talk about the atom. And there's this joke like my kids tell me, like, how come you can't trust an atom? Because they literally make up everything. So we know an atom is 99.999126% empty space. That's a lot of empty space. So the illustration that I use that some of you may have seen in one of the videos I put together has to do with a sugar cube. So if you were to remove all of the empty space from all of the atoms, from all the 7 billion plus people that are alive on the planet right now, they would all easily fit into the volume of a sugar cube. Does that make sense? Nikola Tesla said, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Light equals photons. Photons are energy, frequency, and vibration. A hologram is a projection of light. Even Professor Stephen Hawking, his final theory was the universe is a hologram. And there have been a lot of books written on the subject. This is one of my favorites, The Holographic Universe. You probably should have a dictionary on one side of you and a quantum physicist on the other as you read it, but it's very deep and it really addresses the subject really, really nicely, by Michael Talbot. Something that's interesting about a hologram, okay, if you can construct a hologram, if you cut a hologram in half, each half still contains the entire hologram. And if you cut it in half again, it still contains the entire hologram. It's pretty amazing, again and again and again. You are a piece of the universal hologram. A piece of the hologram contains the entire hologram. You contain the entire universe. It's something called the law of one. Now, one of the things that we are struggling with, that I've been struggling in, is why is this holographic reality so difficult to wake up in? Part of the reason is because we're in a hologram, in my opinion, that's been hacked. It's been hacked so that we do not awaken as we are supposed to, so that our energy goes through a harvesting process lifetime after lifetime. The karmic things that we're supposed to be resolving lifetime after lifetime, we're not doing that. And this is where we all come in. We're going to help awaken a world and end domination and control. So basically, having a gathering like this, and a lot of you guys have like your own YouTube channels, you're really like talking about it to people, you're really passionate about the subject. I believe you guys, us all, we're all renegades. We're the ones that are really gonna bring the message to people, and we're gonna be relentless about it. Because as time goes on, as time marches on, people are gonna it's gonna become undeniable. There's gonna be such crazy Mandela effects. People are gonna be looking for answers. And guess what? We're putting those answers together and we're formulating them. Imagine, could Earth be a quantum computer? Now don't forget, you're talking to a software guy here, so these type of things make like a lot of logical sense to me. But think about it, we know the power of quantum computers. Google just had a paper released the other week showing the supremacy of quantum computers, how they can do a calculation in seconds that would take a supercomputer the size of this hotel 10,000 years to do the same calculation. Pretty amazing. Imagine that the Earth is sentient, that the Earth is aware. Imagine that the Earth has a feminine nature. Imagine that the Earth holds the DNA from around the universe. And when you just look at the diversity of all different types of life, whether it be on the surface or under the seas or in the air, there's so much diversity. What does that all possibly mean? It's really important things to consider along with dreams. Dreams are subconscious imaginings that contain sounds, images, and other sensations while you sleep. Dreams are holographic. Dreams are something that we've all experienced. We probably have even experienced dreams that we thought were real. And then you wake up and like, wow, I thought that was really happening. So dreams are a very important part of understanding everything that's going on. Me dreaming you, you dreaming me, Earth Mother dreaming all of us, and recording that in the Akashic Record as memories stored in light. Our dreams hold the clue to what reality is. And really, they can't take our dreams away. Every time we go to sleep and our body goes into sleep paralysis and we start going into the dreaming process, that's something that's very unique, and there are experiences that we share. And dreams are so important too, because they could help guide us into our future and give us symbolisms and things to help us understand things that are going on around us that our subconscious may know pretty clearly. And that's the best way for the dreams to communicate to the more aware person, especially if we can remember our dreams. They're always there to remind us. Next topic, what is a timeline? So I have this illustration of all these different train tracks coming in. The train tracks are going to symbolize different timelines and how they can intersect. And it reminds me of this big train station in New York City called Grand Central Station. Not anymore. It's Grand Central Terminal, and it's always been Grand Central Terminal. So it's true. So timelines. Now, as I mentioned before, my first clue as to how timelines worked related to Haas avocados and my customers' data. So I thought this was going to be a real easy one to solve, right? I go back like a few years and I find all these invoices that say HAAS, right? That's logical, because I know of definitely a few years ago I was buying Haas avocados, so I should be able to go back and actually look at hard copy printouts to show it. Guess what? And this is just an example. I don't know how clearly you can see it. This is a sample invoice that I had always used on these different presentations I would do when I would have a food distribution company that was interested in my software. And this is from 2000, I can't even read the date, 2014 maybe. It says Haas avocados. And now I remember when I would give these demonstrations, in my head I'd always go Haas avocado. I'd always say HAAS. I'd always pronounce it that way. And it was always the last item on all of our demo invoices. So when I went back and I looked what they were, they all had switched to HASS. So that began to give me a clue as to how these timelines work. Once you switched into a timeline where it's always been that way, you picked up all the data from that timeline, so to speak. Now, there's also the concept of future timelines. These are timelines that have infinite possibilities, like intersecting train tracks. Anything that can be conceived or imagined exists. Thoughts and decisions create reality. They can manifest as actual experiences. Now, the other concept are what we call past timelines. These are timelines that we consciously remember. We remember Stouffer stovetop stuffing, we remember Haas avocados, et cetera, et cetera. We also remember a time when the Mona Lisa didn't smile. At least I do. That was the thing. How come she's not happy? But do we remember something called the Isleworth Mona Lisa? Okay, check this out. This is something this is something that just came into my reality. There's a few new things about the Mona Lisa. So here's the Isleworth Mona Lisa. It has now been, or it has been for a while, authenticated by people in the art world that was painted by Da Vinci 10 years before the original Mona Lisa. Now, I had never heard of that before. So here's Mona Lisa 10 years younger, and here's the current Mona Lisa, and there's been some changes with her too. She's got a little bit of a smile going on. She used to have her hands clasped in her lap. Now she's like sitting on a chair, and it looks like one of her arms is resting on the chair, and the other arm is clasped over it. And her hair has also gotten a little straighter as well. And you can't see it in this picture, but it looks like there's a little like black doily thing on the top of her head. So these are things that I had no idea about, just like the Isleworth Mona Lisa. I'm sorry, I never heard of that before. And another past timeline that, okay, these are the things that shake me up. Okay, Marilyn Monroe. I remember when she had her famous beauty mark that was above her lip, below her left nostril. Now it's on her left cheek. Her beauty mark is over here. I remember it being under here. So these are the little things that bother me. These are the things that keep me up at night. So, but these are all examples of past timelines. Now, there are something called convergence points or nodal points or jump points or intersection points. It's a concept that all has the same, different names with the same type of concept. It's basically where multiple timelines come together and merge. So like train tracks. And these, we'll call them jump points here. These jump points appear as in front of you because we experience time as linear. And it is said that having in the Earth hologram experience, we have a very different experience because time in our perception only moves forward, so to speak, frame by frame. And that time in other parts of the universe does not operate that way. They call it no time. So when you come to Earth and you have an Earth experience, a lot of times it's confusing to be in a linear experience versus one where time operated in a completely different manner. So here's an example of these jump points or nodal points. This is a little bit more of a simple train tracks simulation, but you can see how different tracks could come in and they could hit a certain point where they come together, and instead of like your life taking different paths to get to another jump point, there is the way to do something called quantum jumping, which Cynthia may know a little bit about. And if you want to know more about it, there might be some books back there that address the topic as well. So from a higher perspective, when one looks down upon time, and you can see these multiple tracks coming in from all different directions, you can see jump points like a flower blooming. You can quantum jump instead of weaving all around to the next jump point. So here's another example. This is the Fibonacci sequence and how you've got all these different spirals. So instead of you taking a timeline to go from here to here, you might take all different paths to do it, but you might want to just jump from here to here, take the quickest path so that you can get whatever results that you're looking for. Also too, Earth will plant timelines for you in her flower garden of possibilities. So we have all these different decisions we can make. And Earth herself, Earth the quantum computer, let's call her that, she can actually plant for you different timeline possibilities for things that you may never actually would have tried, or a version of you may not have actually tried or attempted, that you can actually go and access yourself at some point. Pretty far out stuff, right? You can quantum jump as an individual. You can quantum jump as a group. Hey, let's do that now. Or you could quantum jump as an entire planet. As the consciousness of a planet can rise, everyone could hit another jump point as well. Our memories are merged with memories of the converged jump point. So the Mandela effect is the consequence of jumping timelines while holding memories of the previous timeline. That's why some people are beginning to have dual memories. So that interview with my parents, we talked about Beethoven, and I've mentioned a Beethoven example to some people and some other examples, and people really get confused. They're like, wait, Van Beethoven? Maybe it was von Beethoven. So there are those type of things that are happening because we are beginning to become aware of other versions of ourselves with those memories that experience that particular timeline. Quantum jumping causes an acceleration of consciousness. Guess what, guys? Everyone here, all of your consciousnesses are accelerating right now. That's what's happening. And that's why you're so hungry for more and more information. And the individual in a new timeline can retain the memories of a previous timeline. These retained memories are the Mandela effect. Some individuals may retain awareness and memories of 2 or more of their selves from previous timelines. And if you're experiencing the Mandela effect, you are becoming what's called multi-dimensional. You are becoming aware of other realities and other timelines. Now, I have a personal example of when I recently met with an attorney, probably about 5 or 6 months ago. Now, I was talking to him about some business things. Now, I had never met him before. And he had a very unique name where, I would remember that name and I would remember what he looked like. And after we had our meeting, he's like, he's like, Chris, how come, you don't remember who I am? And I'm like, no, this is the first time we ever met. And he's like, no, don't you remember 15 years ago, you had that software developer guy in London that you wanted to bring into the US, and I helped you bring him in for that health insurance software system you were writing? And I'm like, what? Health insurance software? I don't know what you're talking about. But what's interesting is about, in that time, maybe 20 years ago, my father used to be in the health insurance business. And we lived in Connecticut, and at that time, Hartford, Connecticut was the insurance capital of the world. And he had made a contact for me. I think it was an Aetna or one of those big companies that was looking for this great big system to be written. As it turned out, in this timeline, it kind of fizzled out. It didn't turn into to do anything, and I was focusing on my food software anyway. But it was possible that I could have, as soon as he said it, I'm like, wow, I was looking into writing software for the health insurance industry, and I never wound up doing it. So this is something that happened to me. So this is someone that he knew me, I didn't know him. So this experience happened to me. So my bet is it's gonna start happening to you guys as well. You're gonna have people come up to you and remember certain things about you, and you're gonna be like, I don't know what you're talking about, and they're gonna be very definitive about it, just like we are with certain Mandela effects. So I believe this is a future thing that we're gonna be experiencing more and more. So when it comes to timelines, can you bring in the resources of other timelines? Yes. What does that mean, resources of other timelines? Remember, a lot of people probably saw that video with Geordie Rose from D-Wave Quantum Computers where he talked about harvesting the resources of other timelines. What's that about? I might answer that question in a few minutes. Next, timelines can collapse and merge. Can you gain advantage by this? Yes, you can actually. Can timeline events be spliced and merged into a dominant timeline? Yes, they can. For example, if you have a disease, can you quantum jump to another timeline to bring in another timeline where you never experienced that disease? Yes, absolutely. There is a concept known as a negative timeline holographic insert. Now, an example of this would be the 9/11 Twin Tower attacks. So that whole situation just didn't make any sense, the whole story. Like when you really look into it, and I don't really want to, that's not my role to talk about that, but it raises enough questions to know that there are enough things that weren't in sync for it to actually flow and actually happen. So that would be an example of something called a negative timeline holographic insert. Why would that happen? Like, why would beings want that to happen? And it is said that there are beings that have technology to be able to create and insert these into this reality. So, another negative holographic timeline insertion example has to do with World War II. It has to do with the Nazis. It has to do with U-boat attacks, sinking ships off the New England coast. Now, is anyone familiar with that? The whole concept where the Nazis in, I think it was 1941 or 42, they sank all of these ships and over 5,000 people were killed. Now, for myself, I had never heard about that, especially living in New England. That was like big news. So that would be an example. There were more people killed off the New England coast by Nazis in this timeline than were killed in Pearl Harbor, which is pretty interesting. They even sailed into New York Harbor and sank an oil tanker. Have any of you heard of that? No. Okay. Watch this. This is from the Smithsonian Institution. I don't even know. I can't keep track anymore.
After 3 weeks at sea, the glow of New York City proves an irresistible beacon.
Harding could see the whole skyline of New York, something probably every German dreamt of before the war.
The captain invites his crew up to the bridge to see the lights of Manhattan. But U-123 isn't here to sightsee. As they leave New York Harbor, the stern watchman spots a ship approaching from the rear.
Hardigan, he sees fully lit up against the lights of New York, a tanker, a nice large juicy tanker.
At close to 7,000 tons, British oil tanker Coimbra cruises unescorted out of New York Harbor. Captain Lieutenant Hardigan maneuvers his submarine into attack position with textbook precision.
It's part of the game of the U-boat commander to be cool, to be resolute, to be cold-blooded, at least to appear so, to create confidence within his crew.
Just 800 yards from the target,
Torpedo fire!
he launches his first torpedo. 58 seconds later, a hit.
Okay, so how many people have heard of that? I had never heard of that before. So, right in New York Harbor. Now, so this gets even more interesting. So because the US Navy was unprepared for this to happen. So what happened was something called the Hooligan Navy was formed. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Hooligan Navy, but what it was is private yachts and fishing boats were painted gray, and they would go out and pick up survivors off the New England coast and off the east coast of the United States. And they actually saved hundreds of people. There would have been far more than 5,000 that were killed if it wasn't for the Hooligan Navy. And even Ernest Hemingway was its mascot. So it goes even further than that as well, because someone famous like Ernest Hemingway, he actually, one of his yachts, he was sailing it around Florida, I believe. He had this plan of going onto a U-boat and throwing grenades down into the U-boat and exploding it that way. There's also a rumor he had more alcohol on his yacht than he did grenades, but that's a whole other subject. But to add some credence to this, I want to show something from, this is a news broadcast that was celebrating, we're talking about the Hooligan Navy. Now, I'm from New England, I'm from Connecticut. These are things that I have never heard about before. And in the town that I live near, it's called New Haven, Connecticut, they built this big, beautiful bridge called the Pearl Harbor Memorial Bridge, in dedication to all the men and women whose lives were lost in Hawaii. On the other part, what happened about the 5,000 that were killed right there? So there's a lot of these things that don't make sense. So watch, this other part will be somewhat brief here. It's the news broadcast is from 2011. I think it's actually before 2011, but it was posted on YouTube around 2011.
The waters off Long Island are renowned for their beauty and tranquility, but during World War II, they were a battleground.
At night, you look in the sky and you can see a great big ball of fire. That means that something was being sunk not too far away.
Jack Fisher of Greenport watched as Nazi U-boats sank 160 Allied cargo ships in 2 months. So in 1941, he volunteered to join the fight with a ragtag bunch of locals who earned the nickname the Hooligan Navy.
We didn't know exactly what we were looking for or what we had to do.
Fisher, in fact, got seasick on his first patrol. Even more astonishing was the fact that the hooligans faced the sophisticated Nazi subs in wooden sailboats. As these rarely seen home movies show, the donated vessels were painted military gray and outfitted with World War I machine guns.
The machine gun was so rusted, and we never even attempted to use it.
The group patrolled East Coast waters for the Nazi subs and, if seen, radioed in their position. Most of the men were like Fisher, 4F, unable to join the regular Navy, but they were the undermanned military's only answer to the Nazi threat. That's why Ted Webb's Greenport Museum honors the so-called picket patrol to this day.
This was a story of heroism, patriotism, wanting to protect our homeland.
There's no record of any German U-boat that was sunk or captured because of the picket patrol's work. But Jack Fisher says he learned firsthand just how effective the group was when he met with a former U-boat commander after the war.
He just said, "I hated you bastards. I traveled 3,000 miles and I have a sailboat pick me up."
Now 89, Jack Fisher is one of the last hooligans left, a living reminder of what Americans do when the chips are down.
Yeah, see, there we go. Very, very interesting. Yeah, this is another another thing that's going to be coming into our awareness. Some of you may have already have heard of the Territorian Empire. It's something that has been erased from history, kind of like a Mandela Effect type of a thing, and that's going to be coming more and more into our awareness. That's a whole other subject. If you want to research that, there are lots of people like online that are making videos about it, and I feel like this is like super important as well, the whole Territorian Empire and how like history has really changed. So when you look at those examples of what happened with the Nazis, and there's a lot more. I actually created a 2-part video series about this that I hope to post in a few weeks. And it actually made me want to take this trip to Germany to do some things. You can watch the videos, but to help like stop these holographic insert type things from happening. So there are, when you discover these things and you discover there are things you can do to help change the reality, you're going to do it. That's I was motivated to do that as well. And then I'll be expressing about this more, and you'll see those videos as soon as they're finished being edited. Now, I want to talk about a positive example of something called like these holographic insert type things. Imagine you own a hotel chain. Now, by the way, just everyone settle down when I talk about this. This is something that I felt that is appropriate, and don't take this as gospel, but let it like sit with you and see if it resonates with you type of a thing. Imagine you own a hotel chain and you have 270 locations, primarily in the United States. However, in other timelines, you've got over 4,000 locations across the world. Now let's say Earth, who can approve timeline changes and merges, she sees the need for more positive hotels across the planet, because one of the things we're going to begin to realize as time marches on is that different parts of our planet, different parts of the hologram, vibrate at different frequencies. And when you visit those different parts of the planet, your DNA gets an upgrade from it, from the frequency that part of the planet is vibrating at. So when people as people begin to more awaken and they begin to understand these concepts, there's going to be a lot more people traveling of different parts of the world, whether that's Egypt or wherever that might possibly be, wherever you're especially called to. Especially if your heritage is from a certain area, those are certain places that you're definitely going to want to visit. Now, in this example that I'm giving, let's say that chain just happens to be named Best Western, okay? Where we are right now. Now, Best Western, now, I used to do a lot of traveling, starting in the 90s. For 20 years, I would get on so many airplanes, it would like almost make me sick every time I'd get on, like, another airplane, I gotta travel somewhere else. So always booking hotels and so forth. And there were Best Westerns around, but not as many as there are now. Now, Best Western did recently have a legit logo change from 2015. However, the logo is new for me. With all the traveling I do, I've never seen just the BW. I always remember it as the Best Western from the other picture as well. And I've been noticing more Best Western hotels that have been there that I've never paid attention to before. So there's a little bit more that was going on than the logo change is what I began to pick up. Now, a new logo is always a sign of growth. It represents deep change within an organization, and it could also represent a merging of timelines. This could be considered another type of a timeline merge. So locations from other timelines are merged or integrated or harvested. Is this an example of when Geordie Rose of D-Wave talks about harvesting the resources of other realities? And the company, of course, would profit by that. But what if there was a way to actually, from other timelines, bring in other hotels that have been created, and to do it in such a way that it kind of merges together seamlessly? Now, Best Western didn't even know this. They have 2 other brands. So we're in what's called a Best Western Plus right now. And they also have Best Western Premier. Now, with all the traveling I would be doing, I would probably be going to the Best Western Premier. I'd be like, hey, is there a Best Western Premier in that town? Because I'd like to stay there. But again, something that I'd never heard of before. What's also interesting is, guess what? In this little town of Ketchum, there's 2 Best Westerns. That's a little peculiar as well, something else to think about. So locations can merge into a timeline based upon an attractant quality like a magnet. Now, other examples, we'll call this what's called stolen authority, has to do with the Home Depot and Home Depot. So some people have actually found, we'll call it residue, of Home Depots. Some people will be like, hey, I've got one of the old style Home Depots in my town, and they'll take a picture of it. Or Chuck E. Cheese's, or Chuck E. Cheese. I don't even know which one it is because they're just like, they're both together all the time. So just another way of looking at residue. So a lot of times people are always looking for residue. Like, I know I'm going to find that Shazam movie someday. It's out there somewhere. But when these timelines are inserted, that's another way for this phenomena called residue to possibly happen. Caution, danger. The quantum businessman says caution about this. You can use timeline merging for business purposes, but it is never to be abused. That's kind of interesting. If in the future there is a way that we can actually do this, you must always strive for the highest timeline potential, because any negative use is always going to be bad karma, always going to be bad karma. So you always, when these things become more, people become more aware of this, it has to be kept at a very, very high positive level. Now, an example that could be due for karmic backlash would have to be related to craft and their timeline takeover of Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. Now think about it, because Stouffer's is something that we all know, right? There were so many timelines that all were Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. So, and that's one of the things I use as an example when I talk to people about the Mandela effect. I usually bring up Stouffer's first. So currently, Kraft stovetop stuffing is king of the Thanksgiving industry, where Stouffer's used to be the king. 60 million boxes of stuffing of Kraft stovetop stuffing are sold every year. And almost every timeline, like I said, had Stouffer's before. So isn't that an interesting way for like a brand takeover? So it's a concept that I don't know how many people are talking about this, but how I've been compiling and doing my research, these are the things that all are within a realm of possibility. I'm sure I could feel all of your consciousness expanding a little bit more and more and more as we keep talking about these things. So now let's talk about causes of the Mandela effect. Okay, authority to cause a Mandela effect. I'm going to say Earth. Earth herself, the Earth hologram, she can cause Mandela effects. Some of us as creators have authority to create Mandela effects. We all have the ability. You might consider Earth as a school for creators to learn and gain that responsibility and authority, and how this works through quantum entanglement. Even in the Bible, it says, Jesus said in John 14:12, very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these. So, and the last thing that can cause Mandela effects, these are positive time travelers, because time travel is also involved to a certain extent. Now, the other part of this is what's called stolen authority. Forces that are making Mandela effects that don't have the true authority to do it. They're stealing the authority. This could be negative time travelers with some kind of negative agenda. It could be negative organizations and technology that's accomplishing it. It could be something we could call negative multidimensional predators that feed off of our energy and create false or artificial timelines as well. Now these are other deep subjects that could probably take their own presentation to talk about, but I just want to kind of like present to you this information. Now there are forces that do not want us to awaken. They want us to stay locked into this dream or this hologram, because it keeps that, we'll call it the 1% in power. And this 1% has been benefiting from our unawareness of what reality is, so that they can rule over the rest of the 99%. They seek to make the Mandela effect a form of misremembering, confabulation, or mental illness. And as more and more people become awakened, those negative forces seek to make corrections to the system to nullify Mandela effect discoveries. I've been noticing that this is starting to happen. But now what's happening is the system is getting overloaded and it cannot keep up. What do I mean? Well, they'll insert false information, such as a whole story about who created stovetop stuffing. And when I created my first video, Wikipedia actually changed. When I was first putting it together, it had a whole story about stofers and how they were creators of it. And then someone named Ruth Seams at another organization actually, so Wikipedia stuff started changing. So the purpose is to make the hologram appear to be real, and the Mandela effect explainable is just a misremembering. You just misremember that. So what do I mean? Well, to make a hologram, to make this hologram appear to be real, you must first begin your life process with amnesia. That's the best way. So when you're born, you're going down the birth canal, you're given amnesia. When you're born, you just popped into existence. Here I am, world. That's the first thing. The second thing is it has to be immersive. The hologram has to be immersive. It has to be absorption. There has to be saturation. Now, when you take these terms and you think about going to the movies, for example, you watch a good movie, you really get absorbed in the plot, don't you? And if it's something sad, you'll cry, or if it's something happy, you'll be all excited, etc. So you can tell from yourself by movies, video games that you play. Some people really, really get into video games. Even reading a book can totally absorb you. So these are examples of how the hologram is attempting to keep you locked in to think that this is all true reality. Now, another example of losing control of the hologram includes the giraffe, okay? So giraffes recently have a new Mandela effect called dark giraffes. Has anyone heard of dark giraffes before? Okay, so that's one thing that's a Mandela effect for a lot of people. The other thing is what giraffes actually eat has changed, and the system has not been able to update itself quickly enough. So I'm pretty sure everyone here has a pretty good idea of what giraffes eat, right? Okay, let's find out.
I was at a zoo just 2 weeks ago looking at giraffes in a giraffe exhibit.
Okay.
35 pounds of leaves a day, and the zoo is requesting people to bring in leaves off of tree clippings.
Okay. Okay, so in the image here we've got the dark giraffe. These just popped into reality. If you try to research what a dark giraffe is, they don't really understand it. There was a theory that older giraffes turn dark as they age. Then there was another theory that the dominant giraffes in a herd will turn dark. All kinds of theories. No one really knows exactly what that is. But what giraffes eat really bothers me now. I was always taught that they were herbivores and they only ate plants, leaves. Now, when I started writing this presentation, there's something that Wikipedia clearly said. Giraffes were herbivores. However, in this timeline, you can easily find footage of giraffes.
Hi, I'm Rob the Ranger. Welcome to today's video. I hope you enjoy it. Have fun.
That's cool. That was really
cool. We're not gonna watch the whole thing here. I think you guys kind of get the point. But basically, giraffes are no longer herbivores. They actually will eat the carcasses of dead animals. They'll even chase hyenas away after a lion kill to get to the carcass. What? I've never heard of that before. So there's in Australia, Tony, he's a pure Rothschild's giraffe. That's an interesting name for a breed of giraffe. Rothschild's giraffe at Werribee Open Plain Zoo in Australia. He was notorious for eating dead rabbits in front of visitors. "It just ruined your talk," says Goldie Purgy, former visitor experience officer at Werribee. "You'd explain how giraffes are herbivores, and he would do that." So, strange things are afoot, my friends. Now, okay, I'm not done. Beaver teeth, right? Beaver teeth are another example of how the system can't keep up. So the thing about with giraffes, there's all kinds of, giraffes are only herbivores, and then you can find all these videos of them eating meat and eating bones and so forth. Beaver teeth are another example of how the system cannot keep up. Okay, so beaver teeth. Does anyone know what color a beaver's teeth are? And if you say white or off-white, that's cool. Okay. Beavers have always had orange teeth. Now, I don't remember that. I don't remember beaver teeth being orange. I was reading an article that says they're technically considered steel. They have iron inside of it, and they never stop growing. That's the way it was before. Beaver's teeth would always continually grow. And they turn orange because they oxidize from the iron inside their teeth. That's new for me, very new for me. And an example of how the system can't keep up has to do with cartoons, okay? I went through every cartoon I could find that had beavers in it. Not a single beaver had orange teeth. Every single beaver had white teeth in all the cartoons. So the system is not keeping up. So here was something that was new, introduced into the reality. And however, there's all this other evidence that the way the reality actually is, all of the past stuff that has not kept up with it as well. So the next slide, and I tried to, oh, here's angry beavers. I'm like, oh, there's orange. Like, oh no, that's his nose. His teeth are still white. Yeah, yeah, there are two angry beavers.
Well, that's what it's called. Two angry beavers, not the angry beavers.
Is that another Mandela effect? Okay. I know, it doesn't stop, right? So now, okay, now this is something I thought was interesting. Is there an advantage for beavers to now have teeth made of steel? Would this be what I'm going to call an inserted DNA timeline upgrade with a specific purpose? Now, this is fun. It just so happens that Fermilab, has anyone heard of Fermilab? They're outside of Chicago. Okay, you guys have heard it in the back. They're a large hadron collider. They're just like CERN, okay? Now, if anyone remembers, CERN had a weasel problem in 2016 where a weasel broke into CERN and chewed through these big high voltage cables and brought down CERN for like weeks. So wouldn't it be, it's interesting because Fermilab, which is another large hadron collider outside of Chicago, it's built across these lakes. They have 3 beaver lodges with all these bright, shiny orange teeth. I wonder what they could eat through. I wonder if they might bring down Fermilab in Chicago. It's something fun, but it just made me think of it. It triggered a thought about the courageous weasel getting into the CERNs. Yeah, okay. So those of us that are experiencing the Mandela effect, we're the lucky ones. We're the fortunate ones. Because when we begin to understand what is happening and we can go from fear to love, from negative to positive, we can be the first ones that are actually raising the vibration of the planet. And it's happening now. Our understanding of reality would make it easier for humanity to handle disclosure events, okay? Disclosure. When we think about disclosure events, you know, we think about ETs and aliens and, whatever. But wouldn't it be a little bit easier for us if we understood more of how reality works and we'd be accepting of it? And in my opinion, the disclosure is not going to be just ETs. We're going to find out that angels really exist, dragons really exist, elementals really exist, so much more. There's a lot to be disclosed. So the more people who are in a dominant frequency of love and are emitting photonic light, who are quantumly observing this reality, are influencing and changing reality. This is an awesome responsibility that we all have. We all need to, if we're in the fear frequency, we need to flip that and get into the love frequency, because that's really what this is all about. Now, for those of us who are creating the Mandela effect, and I believe it's true, I believe we can quantum jump and we can create our own Mandela effects, what can we do? One of the things we can do is we could bring back animals maybe thought to be extinct or nearing extinction. One might be the Tasmanian tiger, extinct since 1933. Guess what? There was a news article a couple weeks ago. The Tasmanian tiger is back. They were discovered again. Like they thought there were no more left for, 80 years, and now they're back again. So yay, whoever brought that back, that's a great one. Anytime an extinct animal comes back, that's wonderful. So if we are in a game, a school, how do we win? How do we graduate? we do the great work. What's the great work? The alchemy of consciousness. What is the alchemy of consciousness? Turning consciousness from lead to gold. How do you turn consciousness from lead to gold? Well, that's your journey to discover. But I'll give you a hint. It's relentless optimism. Cynthia, how good can it get? That's it. You know what the secret is. And now, everyone, I'm going to present to you the definitive proof that the Mandela effect is real. Are you ready? Yeah. Richard Simmons never wore a headband in this reality. There we go. We could just end everything right here. So thank you everyone for listening to this presentation. I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun putting it together. Thank you. I'm working on all these other videos. I want to go into more depth and talk about all these different things and express things and learn from you guys. And it's a great sharing of information. So
now don't go nowhere. We've got a Q&A session. Anybody have any questions about what you just heard, please step on up to the mic here and ask away.
I embarrass myself because my spelling's bad. I want you to go back to the word absorption. Can you do that?
I think we have the technology.
What's the root word of absorption? And why would it be spelled the way it was up here? Yeah, I think it's... Here it is. And that doesn't look right to me.
I mean, I could have misspelled
it. You pronounced it with a B, not a P. Is that the right way to spell it? Or is that just me bad spelling?
The spell check thing is driving me crazy. I don't know if it's sometimes 2 words, 1 word, somehow.
A lot.
Yeah, it's like
a lot. In 2008, it was 1 word. I called up my brother's wife, who it was a school teacher, and I'm like, "How do you? I don't understand. It's coming up as a misspelled word. How do you spell a lot?" And she's like, "It's 2 words." So it was 2 words. Then it went back to 1 word. Now it's back to 2 words. That's a definite flip flop for me.
It's a dilemma.
Try to win. I was gonna say, try to win a spelling bee as a kid. You're kind of doomed.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else have any questions? Please, feel free.
I have a weird one.
Okay, we like the weird ones.
It may not have any point. This has just been a curiosity of mine. It seems like you might know. I don't understand the internet. Like, where do we hold all of the information in the internet, and how is it connected to all of us? Does that make sense?
Okay, so the internet.
Yeah, explain the internet.
Okay, so the internet is a series of servers, computer servers that hold data.
Where are they?
They're all over the planet. Some are in farms. They're called server farms. Some are like in underground bunkers that can allegedly take a nuclear attack. So they're all over the planet. Some people have them in their basement, in their house, like their kids use a game server and their other friends all connect into it. So servers can be anywhere. They could be in a farm, they could be individual, they could be in a business. And then using routers, you can connect into those servers, and it knows the right path to take. It's like a big web, and based upon the IP address, which is like a phone number, it knows exactly what server to go to and extract.
So there isn't one location that we're all connecting to. It's
no. And that's why the whole purpose of the internet was put together too, so that if like a country went down or something, you can still get access to data. Like a certain part of the world could be under attack, or servers can go down someplace else, and other servers, it would just flow around it.
And so in these servers, what's holding the information? Is there crystals, or what's holding the information?
It's usually some kind of like hard drive technology.
What are those made of?
What's that?
What are they made of?
Yeah, I think ultimately.
Silicone. So that would be a is silicone a crystal?
Yeah.
There are crystals, yeah.
Right.
There.
Okay. That's all I want.
Okay.
Who
Okay, no, okay. I'm gonna. Now that you said that question, I'm gonna say something funny because in the 90s I started another business which was an internet service provider, and in this little town in Connecticut I had about 5,000 subscribers that would like dial. This is the time before DSL and cable modems became popular, and now I already forgot what I was gonna say, but what was your question? Okay, thank you. So I used to teach these classes about the internet. You know, I go to the local library, and like the senior citizens would want to know like how to use the internet and how to send email to their kids and stuff. And I would always talk about the internet and the World Wide Web and how it was developed by the US Navy, and a guy named Vince Cerf developed the World Wide Web. Now what's happened is that CERN is claiming responsibility for ownership of creating the World Wide Web. Now for some reason Vince Cerf has worked for CERN, and if you go to CERN, you could find the original computer that he created the World Wide Web on. And I'm like, what? I used to teach that, and that was never there. But by that timeline insertion, it gives them authority over the internet. So if you were to go, as an example, if you were to go to Google, okay, and type in Mandela Effect, guess what the first, maybe we should try this.
Do it live.
Here's a result from search.
That's quantum searching right there.
There you go.
All right. Google. Okay, Mandela Effect.
And then a black ink right after.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Okay, hold on a second. No, sorry, YouTube. I meant YouTube. Mandela Effect. Okay, let's see who comes up first. Oh, now it's coming up second. Okay, this one here from Fermilab always used to come up first. So Fermilab is a Large Hadron Collider. They work in sync with CERN. So CERN almost gave itself the authority of the internet to be like, oh, we're the creators of the World Wide Web. It gives them authority so that different things and different searches and so forth, they would come up at least towards the top. And by the way, if anyone ever wants to play this particular video, it's actually pretty hysterical. It's this guy at Fermilab talking to his dog Albert about how crazy the Mandela Effect is. And then while he's talking to his dog Albert, the dog turns into a cat. And I just feel bad for the dog and the cat in the video, but it's kind of like it really, maybe don't watch it because it kind of puts you down. But it was really interesting how that video would always come up first. Even though it didn't have as many hits as the other videos, etc., that would always come up first. But sometimes that there are ways that using these timeline insertions, etc., you can gain authority over different types of things like the internet. Hey, we have authority over the internet because we created the World Wide Web. So that was a good question.
I got a question. You spoke a lot about different timelines and timeline jumping and the possibility that we could jump from one train track to the other, if you will, which I really thought that was a great example there. I like that. I'm happy to use that myself. But the question is, do you know of any personal exercises or things you would use to make those jumps? Anything we should do personally to try to affect our jumps and our movements?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I know like Cynthia in her book has a lot of. I would even ask Cynthia to answer that question if you wanted to. Okay, yeah, but basically there is a way going into a meditative type state and feeling yourself relax into a situation and having that intention. People have been able to actually change their reality, and sometimes they even do it subconsciously. Sometimes people are such creators. They have the power to do that, and it happens to them all the time. So, but as soon as that could be a whole other topic as well, like how to quantum
I gotta
jump.
say, this right here, I honestly think we manifested this podium. I am not even joking. So when I first come down here to check out this room, there was no podium. And I had no way to get none. I didn't know any local churches, had no contacts, had no way to get a podium. And I sure wasn't gonna buy one. So this right here is the one that I had in my head for 3 weeks. I mean, the design, the color style, everything. So I come in the other day, and they asked, well, can we see the room to set it up? Sure. I come in, that thing's sitting right here, and I just leaned right on it. Oh my goodness, we've got a podium. Turns out they had just put it together yesterday morning. I really think we manifested that into reality by doing just that. By having that.
Yeah, you
that
think you're
love,
thinking
by-
about it and you wanting it and you embrace the love of the universe and yeah, we need that podium. Here it is.
Absolutely. I really think a lot of that had to do with bringing that in. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Oh no. Thank you for manifesting the podium. If I had to hold this laptop the whole time, that wouldn't have worked out. So.
That would have been kind of heavy after a while. Anybody else have any questions? Step on up to the mic. Line up.
I wanted to say that like I'm kind of into like etymology and stuff. And if you look at the idea that like a mandala, the definition would be a sigil that's powered by intention to make a change in the universe or cosmos. And it kind of brought up like some fear for me in the beginning with it, because I felt like if you look at like the logos, capital T, capital L, and like the as above, so below kind of thing, and like businesses have logos, so those would be like sigils to maybe make their company prosper. And it makes me wonder if there's a chance that there's not a couple of things going on where there's like this natural Mandela effect thing going on, but then also maybe there's people trying to like imitate it where they can do things to like throw us off and make us doubt things, because, and I feel like that may have a lot to do with how come there's a lot of celebrity names changing and brand names and stuff like that. But then when you look at the universe, we have things like, you know, maps changing and the Rainbow Mountains and things like that.
Yeah.
So I just thought that maybe it should be brought up, because if, you know, some people might think that way too. And if anyone heard that, if they had that opinion,
So
that it got brought up.
So like the Mandela being like the word using etymology, meaning change.
Right, or yeah, but intentionally, like by some like doing it purposely. That's what I'm saying. Just kind of like when you go to the movie, when people all go to the movies, you have like a movie theater full of people, and they're all focusing with emotion on whatever it is that people think that we should watch, and they're all in a group together working hard, focusing on it, and it can help bring about a change that maybe we don't want and someone else does. Like say like the San Andreas Fault movie or something.
Yeah, exactly,
You know?
exactly.
So I just wanted to
people
point
are powerful.
that out.
Yeah, no, people in our consciousness are pretty powerful, and once we know how to tap into that as a group, boy, we're really super powerful. So
it's important to point out that it probably is important to like not participate in those kind of things, you know, that could bring about negative things.
absolutely, keep it positive. Yes, love all the way up. Scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I wanted to say to you though, is I understand what
Microphone.
you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're saying about the sigils, and what you're talking about is mathematics and geometry. So that's how the invisible and antimatter comes into matter through different geometries and mathematics. And if you look at groups, secret societies, the Masons, and if you look at you know their compass, etc., it's showing you that certain geometries can create inversion. Certain geometries have our body. Right now we have, for example, a carbon-based geometry in our cells. We're saying if we evolve, it gets to a different structure in mathematics and in geometries. So people who have knowledge and power, like let's say the swastika was a very, very positive symbol from the Vedic text. And that was used because it holds power over us. So people who do have knowledge and want to use it for service to self or service to others can use geometries to kind of pinpoint or focus our consciousness into what they wish to create or present. Right. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a two-part one, but it'll be quick. Okay, Cynthia was talking about the quantum Zeno effect, which is basically the effect that people who are experts in the field, like say doctors, don't always notice, supposedly don't always notice changes in their own profession. Also, we've discussed a lot online about how locals often don't notice changes to their own geographic area. Now, do you notice changes in your geographic area, or do people say that it's changed and you don't think it did? And do you feel that you have any of that problem with your own work, or do you notice all the MEs in your own work?
Yeah, it's interesting because that's something that actually does happen to me a lot. For example, there's this route that I would always, actually even when I was younger, I'd always ride my bike down this road by the Long Island Sound, so to speak, through all these marshes. And then I would, on my way to work, I'd drive a car there. So for 20 years, I've been driving down this road. And then one day, all of a sudden, these two islands popped up in this waterway. And I'm like, whoa, what was that? They were never there before. And then a house had this big sundial on the side of the house that was never there before. And I'm like, when did that happen? Because literally the day before it wasn't there. The next day it was there. And I was going by the house. I had my son in the car, and I had him go out and ask the people how long that sundial's been on the side of the house. They didn't give him an answer. They just said a really long time. So yeah, so those type of things definitely, as far as geography, I'm definitely very much aware of. And even in my business, there'll be a lot of curious things that go on, especially with my programmers, so that they're convinced that they wrote a program, that was doing things a certain way in our main application, and then it's not there anymore, or vice versa. There's something there, and like, who wrote that? Like, we don't. Yeah, so there are those type of things that happen as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you start tuning into Mandela effects, you become really hyper aware. So if you have a doctor that's really into Mandela effects, you may want to go to someone else. That's probably what my advice would be.
Yeah. Now, why do you think that is that some people seem to not see their local ones? Even some of the Mandela affected swear that their area has not changed, but you can still see them.
Yeah, they call that concept is like being in your own bubble of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when you're in your own bubble of reality, things are a certain way, but people from other bubbles of reality, or when your bubble of reality merges with another bubble of reality, then those things start to become apparent. But it's a deep subject with, I'm sure, a more easier answer than that. But yeah, those are all really, really good questions that are all going to be figured out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
You're sure we're going to figure this out?
I'm about 99.9999996% sure that, yeah, we're going to figure it out. Pretty, yeah, 12 nines and a 6%. I'm pretty sure we will. We have to. I believe that we have to.
Okay. Sure. So, in your perspective, what do you imagine could? I got two questions. What do you imagine? Yeah. What do you imagine? That could be Mandelaed into the timeline in positive effects, as well as into the aspect of like mining for resources for other timelines. Of course, that could be taken negatively or be done in a unity fashion.
So, what do I imagine a positive timeline to be? Is that
like of what could be brought in resources to this timeline that could positively affect it?
I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that. There actually probably are an unlimited amount of positive things. One of the things that I always get concerned about is history. I'm very much into history, and seeing history change bothers me. Seeing history being erased bothers me. Seeing history just not different from the way other people. I would like our true history to be restored. I would like us to actually understand, did civilizations like Atlantis actually exist? Were they true? Like in all these fable, mythical places, did they actually exist? Were they just stories? Or were they part of a reality, another reality that's been erased from this hologram? So to answer your question, that's the first thing that I would think of.
Nice. More into your personal experience in like other timelines and other timeline versions of you, and like going into that story where you had a deviation in the timeline where you could have made health software. Do you imagine that a lot of people have this similar thing where they have all these different versions of themselves creating different things in their career path? And how do you express that in a business sense?
Yeah, I almost think that almost every time you blink your eyes, you're almost like, you're going, you can go on another timeline, you can make decisions that branch off, and so you decide to go to work one day instead of another day, and you get into a car accident, but you wound up meeting someone that's extremely important in your life, and that changes everything. And you know, so there's all these different types of potentials and things that could possibly happen. So yeah, there's almost infinite type of possibilities, and a lot of them could be really super positive. We just have to be unpredictable. Sometimes we just have to get out of what we're the normal little rut that life puts us in, to get into an unpredictable route, and that leads to all these other amazing timelines that can manifest themselves.
And will you be working on the ability to bring in data, memory, and awareness from these other timelines to help you succeed?
Wouldn't that, no, that's a great topic, because what if, okay, let's say we've got 1,000 other timelines that are running from other decisions that we've made, that we've actually gained all of this information. We've gained knowledge, we've gained wisdom, we've gained skills. Let's say there was another timeline where we really focused on playing the violin really well, or some instrument, and we became really, really skilled at that. Wouldn't it be totally awesome if we can take those skills and all the knowledge that we learned from that timeline and bring it into this timeline? And those type of things go on and on and on. Different educational choices. You could have been a neurosurgeon, let's say, in another timeline, or whatever it is. Or you spoke 3 other languages. If you could bring that knowledge into the timeline that you're in now, that would be pretty amazing. And that would help humanity really advance to another level. And you kind of you've already done the work. So in the other timelines, you spent all this time practicing the violin. Hey, let's bring it into this timeline and enjoy that.
Do you think that's available to us now?
Do I think that's available to us now?
That skill set.
Accessing
information from all of these.
I think that it's available to us now, but I don't know if we know how to actually do it yet. But it seems that it's logical, and I'm sure someone someplace has already figured it out. But now that the public is getting into all these, there's going to be more things that become apparent. And I actually even think things like quantum computers, a lot of people are scared of them, but I believe there's going to be some amazing things that happen with quantum computers, some really, really amazing things. Next question.
All right, first off, I loved your presentation. Thank you. Really interesting stuff, like the U-boats. And I love the relentlessly optimistic. That's fantastic. So, I have a couple questions. First off, Mandela effects, to me it seems like they're increasing in frequency and also in drasticness. Would you agree with that?
I would. How about you guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're just like intensifying. Like almost every day or so there's new stuff. In personal ones, there are big ones too.
Right, right. And it's getting more interesting and more drastic to me, I believe. Since you're into computers, you must be familiar with the artificial intelligence concepts and the singularity that people are talking about when computers get to that point where they become smart enough to think for themselves and they reach that special point where they can go to the next level. That's the artificial intelligence singularity. So do you think that the Mandela effect is going to end up reaching a Mandela effect singularity based on the exponential increasing of Mandela effects that are occurring?
I definitely believe that more and more people are going to become creators of their own Mandela effects, and that is going to be happening more and more. I also feel too, like, I'm going to call it something like a dead man switch, but I'm going to say that as you begin to understand how Mandela effects work and how you can actually manifest them in your life, you have to be at a certain positive frequency and vibration for that usually to even happen. So as you keep growing and as your consciousness, you do the great work and you turn the consciousness turns from lead to gold, so to speak, you only want to do things that help and improve and make things beautiful and bring animals back from extinction and pollution issues are cleared up, you know, those type of things. So I believe that that's going to be happening more and more and more in a very positive way. But right now we're kind of in it's like a big soup right now. We're trying to figure it all out. Negative stuff, positive stuff, yeah, trying to put it all together.
So now I'm going to ask you the impossible question. Based on, if you were to outline a graph of the increasingness of number of Mandela effects and the increasingness of the drasticness or the power of the Mandela effects, when do you think the singularity would happen? 1 year, 2 years, 20 years?
Oh, I'm gonna probably say
tomorrow.
No, definitely not tomorrow. Well, never say never. But I would think it's got to be within 5 or 10 years that it's going to really. I mean, you can ask me this question 5 years from now. I don't think it's going to be 100 years, but it's definitely whatever is happening is really intensifying for us to understand that we actually do create our own reality, and how we feel inside like really affects and attracts people. So if we're of a really happy, positive vibration, all of a sudden we find all these happy, positive people around us. And if we're always like negative and this isn't working out for me and blah, then we attract that type of a vibration as well. And who wants to feel that way? Everyone wants to feel good and happy. So as people begin to realize they can manifest all those really good and happy things, it's just going to go more and more and more. The whole Mandela effect thing is like so special. Like it's really special. And it's kind of a shame that the scientific community or the world at large thinks that it's a mass misremembering of things, because it's really one of the most amazing things that's happening to us, that's ever happened to the human race. Especially that now we can communicate these things. We've got the internet, we could talk to each other, and we keep growing and growing, and they're happening more and more. So,
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chris Anatra.